What's going on, everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am your host for Blacksploit. My name is Kayode Howard. Welcome, everybody. Listen, it's been a while. I know I've been gone, and now I'm here to bring you back some blaxploitation, some black film gems, right? I got to tell you. So before I get into the film, this was something that. This was a film that my aunt actually recommended for me to do. She was like, listen, if you're gonna do any Blaxploit episode, you gotta do an episode on this movie. Now, I didn't know why, but when she told me the movie, I was like, oh, okay, I have to do it. I have to do it because first of all, I'd never seen the film and I heard nothing but good things about the film. So now, what we're bringing to you tonight, what I'm going to talk about tonight, the film is Three the Hard Way. Three the Hard Way. Man, I watched this film. I watched this film 2 days ago. 2 days ago. It's an hour. It's about an hour and 37 minutes roughly, and I got to tell you, it blew me away. It was fantastic. Now. Listen, is it 1970s? There's some production issues. The acting's not the greatest. But listen, the story and the plot. Well, the plot, the action scenes were actually really solid as well. I got to tell you, the action scenes were fantastic. So this movie was 1974. 1974. And the film itself, for its time, didn't make a whole lot of money, but it was very popular in urban areas, urban theaters. So the film's director, none other than Gordon Parks Jr. Gordon Parks Jr., the director of this film, outstanding. You may know him from other films such as Superfly. Superfly back in 1972. 1972. Also another amazing film that, again, still stands to the test of, you can watch it today and still be really entertained by what you see. So yeah, Gordon Parks Jr., he died really early. He lost his life I believe at the age of 44 in a plane crash. He is the son of Gordon Parks Sr., really well-known African-American director in his time. So let me get into this movie. There's a lot to unpack in this film. So I want you guys to stay with me as I go through this. I have to break it down for you. So the movie itself, was, in my opinion, action-packed, solid stories, a solid story that is scary to think about today. When you think about the story and you watch this film, you're saying to yourself, "Oh my God, this is what we're seeing today." Like they were way ahead of their time to show this type of film. And back in the 70s, these blaxploitation films, some people have issues with them with being, they show African Americans in a negative light. They make fun of African Americans. They glorify everything that's wrong with the black community. I see it a little different. And when I do Blaxploit, I celebrate these films. I celebrate the fact that we had a voice to be in front of cameras, right? Now, some of the films, yes, did it glorify some things that are not the greatest, yes, but in some sense, that was their reality, and that was the reality of a lot of people during these times. And in this case, we have three solid actors for this time, really knocking out the roles that they played perfectly. So the characters I want to get into. The characters. The first one, we had Jim Brown playing Jimmy Late. We have Fred Williamson playing Jagger Daniels. And we had Jim Kelly playing Mr. Keys. Jim Kelly, martial arts expert, playing Mr. Keys. And the antagonist, your protagonist, Jim Brown, Jim Kelly, Fred Williamson, these were all friends. They were all friends in the film, and this one event brings them all together to essentially fight the man. They're essentially fighting the man, right? So these three people, and Jim Brown at this time got into acting. He had finished his football career. Fred Williamson was a known actor, and Jim Kelly, everyone knew from the martial arts films as well. So these were really established guys playing these roles of these really strong alphas that tag teamed and essentially they essentially killed everybody in the film. Like it was 3 against 1,000 plus, maybe even more. 3 against 1,000 plus in this film, and they beat them all. Nothing got in their way. Jim Brown's woman gets taken in the process of what I'm about to explain as the plot, and that's all he needed to give him motivation to go after the people that did this. Now, the people that did this, you have your antagonist. You have the actor Jay Robinson playing Monroe Feather, the head of the white supremacist group that is plotting to basically eradicate the black population. Basically, his job or his mission, along with his chief doctor, Dr. Fortero, which is his head scientist and this is the guy who creates this serum that is going to destroy and kill the black race. That is the plan. The plan is to destroy and kill the black race. And Dr. Fortero he likens the serum to the sickle cell anemia disease that only African Americans have or get. What that means is the serum only attacks the black race. It doesn't attack any other race. Where just like the sickle cell anemia, only attacks African Americans. So really interesting right there, right off the bat. You have just white supremacist group who is tired of his country being taken over by brown people, and now he wants something to do about it, and he's found a doctor to do something about it with him, and now they create this serum that is that's basically going to kill and wipe out the black population. Now, I gotta show you this. This is a clip from the film that I want to throw to 3 the Hard Way, and you take a look at yourself. Awesome film.
They're gonna kill us all. They gotta stop it.
Action explodes all over the place when the big 3 join forces to save their race. Brown, Williamson, Kelly. Rated R.
Whew, 3 the Hard. Listen, I gotta tell you, if you have not seen this film, I suggest you go out, rent it, or try to find it. I don't even know where. Maybe your local library might have it. But this is definitely a film to be watched, especially if you're into film that has or speaks to certain messages in today's culture or just in culture in general. What was the issue that was going back in the 70s, that was happening in the 70s to make this type of film? And one of the issues were you had groups, extremists, who wanted to see African Americans be no more, die, get destroyed, and whatever. And for this film in 1974 to come out, and what's really interesting, the 3 cities that Dr. Fortero and Monroe Feather planned to inject the serum in the water supply, by the way. They were injecting the serum in the water supply. Does that ring a bell to anybody? So the 3 cities was DC, Detroit, and Los Angeles. 3 cities. Now those 3 cities in the 70s, highly populated by African Americans, which, there you go, right? You attack those three cities, you essentially, in their minds, wipe out the black race. That we were subjected to three cities in the entire country that this doctor felt and this white supremacist felt were the cities that he was going to hit and wipe us all out. Three cities. Now, these three men get together. They fight this group, and the motivation behind it is Jimmy Late's woman gets taken away from him. She gets kidnapped by this group. And the reason and how she gets kidnapped is simple. They have a friend, a mutual friend named House. House was kidnapped himself, and this white supremacist group was going to use him as an experiment to test the serum. House escapes, finds Jimmy Late, played by Jim Brown somehow. I don't know how he found him. But he listen, it's the 70s, not all the story makes sense, but he finds him and explains to him what's happening. And when Jimmy Late, who's also this big-time music producer, he has to go and do some work. His woman stays with House. The supremacist group finds House in the hospital. They kill House, spoiler alert. Don't watch it. Listen, if you plan on watching it, I'm giving some away already. But they do away with House and they kidnap Jimmy Late's woman, his wife, in the process. So now Jimmy has motivation. He has to find his woman and also find out what's going on and stop this group before this happens. So he gets the help of his boy Fred Williamson, played by Jagger Daniels. He also gets help from Jim Kelly, playing Mr. Keys in this film, martial arts expert. Doesn't use a gun in the entire film up until the last scene, which is also supposed to show that he only needed his hands to combat these guys. He didn't need anything else, and he proved that. They basically beat it was like 3 on everybody, and they win. They went out and they stop this. Now, I want to give just a little history behind this a little bit, right? The water crisis in Flint, Michigan today, which was and it is still happening, which is killing and has killed and has massively made people sick all throughout the city. In Flint, Michigan, here's some numbers. 57% of the people in Flint, Michigan, like I mentioned, DC was one of the cities, 57% are African American that live in that city, 37% are white. So it shows you right there, it's crazy, right? That this movie, 1974, The Water, which was what this group was planning to poison to kill African Americans. We jumped to 2000, I believe 16, 17, still here in 2019, but 16, 17, 18, 19, still years after knowing about the Flint, Michigan water crisis, we are still dealing with lead, poison in the water, harming brown people. Mind blown. So when I watched this film, I was like, wow, this is something that we need to talk about. This is a movie that needs to be seen. Just like the Spook Who Sat by the Door, a film I did a few months back. Same thing, right? Training African Americans to rise up and be better than what they are, to battle the obstacles that lay in front of us, either education, if it comes to the employment, the workforce. You saw that in that film. So it's really interesting that, yes, blaxploitation films do glorify in ways negative things about the African American culture, but what we fail to realize is that a lot of those things was part of our culture in a positive way, our swag, right? The way we talk to each other, the way we dress, how we danced in film. You get a lot of that from the music in this film. So the music was done by the group The Impressions. The Impressions was a group that back in the 70s was really pretty well known. I guess the biggest star of the group was Curtis Mayfield. His voice very known in music, in soul music, in funk, and in the 70s when his music was really, really shaping our culture. He was telling stories of what was really happening out in the streets. I want you guys to, and listen, and also the soundtrack was really solid on this, really solid, great music, great songs, just added to the action of this film. And I just want you guys to listen to the soundtrack of From Three the Hard Way by The Impressions.
What would you do? So brother, help each other. Heed these words I say, yeah, yeah. Following the footsteps of three who stood tall. Though the odds were against them, they don't play. Ha! Three the hard way, yeah.
Now that song is one of the that's their main theme of the film, Three the Hard Way, performed by The Impressions, who are also featured in the film without Curtis Mayfield, by the way. Curtis Mayfield is not in the film, but the group is. And that group is the group that Jimmy Late, played by Jim Brown, is actually producing in studio before he finds out that his woman, played by Sheila Frazier, is kidnapped by this white supremacist group. So, in all, guys, again, I come on these shows not to bash into these films because I think these films paved the way for a lot of the stuff we see. These films has given actors of color a voice, has given them careers, has given them cult status in a lot of ways, and that we should be celebrating these films and not forgetting them, right? We should never forget these films, especially these black-made films. Should never forget them. Now, a lot of these blaxploitation films were also directed by white directors, written by white people, but all in all, we look at the positive here, and the positive is that it gave people voices. It gave Pam Grier a voice. It gave a Jim Brown, a Jim Kelly a voice, a Richard Roundtree a voice, right? It gave them voices. It gave groups like The Impressions an outlet for their music to be seen and heard. Not music not to be seen, but their music heard on the big screen as a soundtrack, giving people hope that yes, I live in the hood or I'm from the hood, but I can make it out and be better or be an artist and be seen, which was key here, being seen. So guys, that's my episode of Blaxploit, brought you Three the Hard Way, 1974, directed by Gordon Parks Jr., also the director of Superfly in 1972. This film starring Jim Brown, Jim Kelly, Fred Williamson, all dashing guys in this, by the way. They're all at their prime in this. Good-looking dudes. They got the suits on, beating up white supremacists, stopping our water from being poisoned, and keeping the black culture alive. I'm Kayode Howard, and this is another episode of Blaxploit. Until next time, later.